What if you could take your skills to the next level? And what would that mean for you? And most importantly, for those that you're reading for? And if you've ever wondered how to step into a role of being truly empowered as a reader with your intuition, don't forget my signature courses are designed especially for you. So let's make tonight the start of that journey. Here we are with that card, the Five of Pentacles from the Rider Waite deck. So just like the fives in all the other suits of tarot, the Five of Pentacles symbolizes adversity. It shows two individuals walking outside while it's snowing. Not only are they cold, they are sick, they are poor, they are tired, and they are hungry. And it looks as if they're lacking the very basic necessities of life. A lot of people can relate to the two individuals in more ways than one. One of the individuals in the card has crutches, while the other figure has a shawl covering her head. Now she's walking barefoot in the snow, and there is a black wall in the background with a stained glass window featuring the Five Pentacles, suggesting a church of some kind. More often than not, the Five of Pentacles is seen as something that we don't want to see and that we don't like. However, it can change depending on where it's placed in the reading. And whenever the Five of Pentacles shows up in a reading, it's suggesting a time of adversity, hardship, and feeling insecure. The meaning of this card can also be deep loneliness, illness, poverty, or loss. There's a chance that you might lose something significant when this card comes up. Now, that might be an important item or aspect of your life. It might even be wealth. It might be that we feel that our well-being is already starting to go down the pan, or there is a chance that you will feel that an important aspect of your life is actually starting to feel as if something significant is causing you some hardships. Now, the person with the crutches has a lot of symbolism. This person may be feeling abandoned, that their luck is turning and they can't shake it off because it doesn't seem to be going in the right direction. And the Five of Pentacles can symbolize that we've got some old debts, some high credit card balances, or maybe some unpaid bills or loans. And it can be a reminder that you should consider sorting out your finances. Mistakes that you've made in the past might also be coming back to haunt you. But the Five of Pentacles is not the greatest of cards when it comes to questions such as relationships and love. It can be an indicator that the person doesn't feel the same way as you. And just like the figures in the card, you might feel left out in the cold. Now, in this card, the Five of Pentacles, we're seeing two people walking through what looks like icy wind and snow. Both are destitute and living in poverty. One man is injured and on crutches, while the other is barefoot and only has that thin shawl or blanket to protect them from this bleak winter weather. Behind them sits a church which is lit up. This has got warmth, which is a symbol of hope, faith, and spiritual support. However, because the two people are so focused on their plight, they fail to see that help is available to them and continue on in their desperate journey. Now, the general meaning of this card can be that this is about financial loss and poverty. we feel that we've hit hard times when it comes to maybe work, career, finances, material possessions. You might feel that, oh gosh, I could be in danger of losing my job, or I have, or my home, or financial security. It shows that you're no longer feeling safe. You're feeling that it's all being stripped away from you in one blow. And your ego may be feeling battered and bruised, especially since success often correlates to financial wealth. And losing either can be a very humbling blow to our self-esteem or our self-worth. It'll pass. It's a time of need. And the Five of Pentacles indicates that you feel isolated and alone. Just like the two people in this card, you may feel as if you've been left in the cold, and you might wonder, why is no one coming to help me? It may appear in your mind that you think that no one cares anymore. However, since the windows in the church are lit up, help is nearby. But we are too focused on the problems to notice that help is there. You may be waiting for someone to come in and help you when you really need to be a bit more proactive, to ask for help. So you might need to swallow your pride or let go of your fear of rejection and reach out and ask. People are around that will support you, but you need to let them in and you need to let them help you. And at times, the Five of Pentacles highlights that we are lacking in our mindset. So we can be sabotaging our ability to create abundance because we're only focusing on what's lacking. And all we can do is see what's going wrong. So to shift this energy, you've got to look for evidence of what you do have. Even its tiniest thing, or it seems insignificant, and you must express your gratitude for those blessings in your life. Over time, the positive aspects will continue to grow, and soon the lack and the not having will be a thing of the past. The Five of Pentacles suggests that you fear that you don't have enough, or that you might lose something important to you, even if it hasn't happened, or it's unlikely. For example, you might be living in the fear that you'll lose your job, or that you aren't going to be out on the streets with no home and no support. And if you stay focused on all the negative things that might happen, then you might be manifesting things and creating the outcomes that you don't actually want. Instead, we need to redirect our attention to what we have now and what we want to grow and what we want in the future, so that all of our manifestation is about the mindset and our greatest powers get used for what is good for us. If this comes up and we are doing a career or a work or a financial reading, then the Five of Pentacles is saying that if you're looking for work, now might not be a good time due to the economy. You might have to sacrifice your standard of living for a short period of time to make ends meet. And if you're looking to start a new business venture, again, now is not a good time, and you're likely to suffer a loss. In a financial reading, as we were talking about, the Five of Pentacles nearly always indicates that there is some sort of adversity and hardship. And it might be a recent loss of funds, or that you've been living in a state of feeling there's been some lacking, or a state of feeling that there's not enough for your needs for quite some time. Remember, you've really got to ask, and this might be government, sponsored benefits, just while you get back on your feet. People are willing to help, but we need to tell them, because if we don't say anything, they don't know. Okay? Now, as a personality, the Five of Pentacles, personalities are typically pessimistic. They're focused on negatives. They're isolated, withdrawn. They feel down on their luck. And they're often heard complaining about how little they have in their lives, whether it's material, spiritual, or on a psychological level. You'll often hear them say, I can't afford it. No. So that can be a personality type of the Five of Pentacles. If this card comes up and we're looking at relationships and love, if the person is looking for love, then finding the right person might be a challenge, because the options look as if they've dried up for a short period of time and not much is happening in that particular area. So the dating prospects might have dwindled somewhat, leaving that person feeling that the landscape is barren when it comes to romantic opportunities. And the once vibrant social scene probably seems dull and devoid of any potential connections. So as a result, this card can make us feel that we are isolated and lonely during such a time. But we need to know that we all go through this, and everything, it will pass. You might be struggling financially, which means you've got less money for going out and meeting new people. So can't possibly. But you might be already in a relationship that's quite established. And if the Five of Pentacles comes up in a reading, it suggests that recently the relationship's been through a rough patch and that you may have forgotten, lonely, isolated. And if that's the case, it's time to have an open conversation. Perhaps your partner's hurting as much as you are. And you can show more care and compassion towards each other. It will significantly benefit the relationship. You might have both been feeling the strain and the experience of financial difficulties, which are placing a significant strain on the bond. If this is in a spiritual position in the reading, the Five of Pentacles indicates a spiritual emptiness of poverty occurring without your input here. Perhaps you've placed too much emphasis on the material wealth and have neglected your spiritual well-being. You might be struggling. Which direction am I going on in life? You might feel isolated and shut out from the world. Now's an excellent time to reconnect with your spiritual group, as they will nurture you and care for you, and they'll restore your spiritual balance. When it comes to our well-being, this is a card that sort of certainly says you've probably been feeling run down and tired, and maybe you've been refusing to take care of yourself. Sometimes we ignore what our body's needs are, and maybe we've been just getting into bad habits. Just look at the Five of Pentacles and say, what am I missing? What do I need to do to restore how I need to take care of myself? One of the things that I would say that this card talks about, particularly when it comes to well-being, and I hate to mention the word health, but it's one of those cards, so we've got to go with that. It can be the isolation is because of viruses or contagious illnesses that just brings in quarantine for you and for others. A bit like when we had COVID, or where you've got something that is actually keep away unless you want to catch up. Because if we look at the two figures in the Five of Pentacles, we can actually see the figure that's in blue and on the crutches in the snow has a bell around his neck. And that was a warning to tell people that he was coming. And yes, it is about quarantine. Stay away. It's a contagious disease that I have, which is why this card really does make us feel about isolation and feeling that we have no friends in the world. In numerology, 5 is always a difficult number. It's always about needing to rebuild. But it's also, as I said, experiencing hardships and adversities, struggles, difficulties. But the number 5 is about truth and communication and analysing things. So although you might not be feeling very secure, you may well feel that you're on the outside looking towards the success and happiness of other people, and you feel very left out. So this is a card that has many meanings. This can make us feel that we are being rejected, that we are not well, and that we are stressed and even unloved. So difficult times can leave you struggling to find a balance, although this card can also link to unemployment and financial worries. I told you it was a big one, and that hard times link to an area or an issue that makes you feel unable to find a solution or to know where to ask for help. So the Five of Pentacles is always hardships, worries, material losses, including unemployment. So if you see this card coming up, just safeguard your finances, because you might need to have money for a rainy day. Yes, absolutely. It was said that in the Rider Waite card, that there is a teaching that the bell is about leprosy, and the bell is to actually warn people around that leprosy is walking through the streets and to stay away because it's highly contagious. So absolutely right. That is exactly what it's all about. This is not a good time to be spending. And even the slight change could leave what could be a fairly secure situation that you're in just spiral out of control as bad financial sort of investments or purchases can start landing at your feet. So whether it's unemployment or not, financially this card shows a lack. And it's a lack and a loss of some of the material comforts or pleasures. And it's a time that you will not be able to make ends meet, or that you'll be struggling to try and maintain a balance. So we need to pay close attention to the smallest of details and fine print, especially when it comes to financial matters or work matters. Financial problems can cause arguments between our family, between our loved ones, and general difficulties and personal relationships. So financially, look after the pennies to save the pounds or the dollars. Emotionally, this is a card that you should always take notice of the details in your personal life and don't let things slide. You will feel that maybe you're looking in to others and everything is fine and you're out in the cold and you're totally disconnected from others, just like we see the two figures in this card. Maybe you're trying to keep up with the Joneses and living beyond your means, and you might fear judgment if you don't match up. And you're thinking, I'm the poor relation or the poor friend. So maybe you're trying too hard to actually keep up with what's around you. And it can leave you feeling detached, isolated, due to your life not feeling as if it's enriched in the way you'd like it to be. You might not fit in due to certain circumstances, and you might be listening to feelings of rejection rather than seeing what's around you and moving forwards positively. You'll feel that you may not belong where you wish to, wondering why the doors keep closing and that you've been left out, feeling you've been given the cold shoulder. Health can take a bit of a dive bomb when there's cars around. Why? Because we can become clumsy, accident prone. We're not looking where we're going. If you look at the figures, she's quite rightly rather foolish to head on into the blizzard, head down. But by having the head down and focusing so much on navigating the weather, you're neglecting yourself and not seeing that help is at hand. They looked up, could see the stained glass window and know that it's a place of warmth, light, shelter, comfort, and that it's not how they're seeing it. It's just they're blinkered. We can understand why. There are great hardships there. The 5 in the suit of Pentacles has a lot of key words, and some of them we think of as not so positive. Yeah, it can be a negative change in your current circumstances, loss, financial burdens, scarcity, lack, spiritual hunger. It's a big one. Missing the point. Look at our figures. They are not paying attention. They're so wrapped up in what they're doing, quite rightly. We cannot deny it. And we've all been so busy multitasking against our illness, against the blizzard. He's on crutches, his bandages, barefoot. You're an outcast, homeless maybe. We don't know. Struggling. Broken dreams. Desperation. Feeling like a social outcast. Ostracized. Alienated. The most memorable one I ever remember when I was learning is feeling out in the cold, feeling rejected. But it's a card of charity. It's also a card of being charitable. It's also sometimes the less we have, the happier we can be. So sometimes looking at this, we can be missing something. Many a time in my life, this has come up, and it's definitely felt like that, I can assure you. But there's also been times when I've looked at getting this card. I work in pairs, so obviously it was coming up at something. And at the time, it was in the 4th house in my reading, and it was also the Chariot, which represents astrologically our domestic arrangements. And I was at the time looking for property, and this kept coming up. And that was because everything was going rather well, but I needed a place to rent while we were moving from A to B. It was complicated, but it was going really well. But it was like we were really looking for a place to rent while the A to B connected, as it were. And that kept coming up. And I kept thinking, oh gosh, what is it? What is it? What is it? You know? But I read this, and I was right, that I was missing something, that something was right in front of me. So the way I read that was with that Chariot card. It was like there is a property right in front of me, and I can't see it. And that was exactly what it was. Even to the point where we had put a deposit to rent another property, which wasn't particularly great on a dual carriageway with small dogs, this kind of thing. So it wasn't ideal. It was lovely, but just wasn't suitable for our family needs. But you know something? A house opposite the house that I was selling suddenly put a for rent sign up. I didn't even know the owner had sold. Didn't even know that the new owner was not going to live in it, because I didn't know that this was changing hands. And so I moved from this house here to this house opposite for that year. But this kept coming up month in, month out, while we were exchanging contracts and completing, all that kind of thing, and saying, yeah, don't always see it as the bleak. Look at it sometimes that you're missing the point, that something is right in front of you and that you are not seeing it. And of course, it wasn't because I was stupid. It was because we didn't have any information until we saw that this particular property had a new owner and they wanted to rent out. Yeah. But it was like, don't do anything, don't do anything, don't do anything. You're missing something. So please do remember that story, because I've seen it happen so many times in readings where that Five of Pentacles stained glass window is telling us we are missing something. And it's not because we're foolish or that we are not paying attention because of the blizzard. It's sometimes because that information isn't available to us. Okay, so don't be too harsh when you get this card. If we look, we can see that it's a cold night in this card. And that woman is clutching that cloak, trying to attempt to retain whatever heat is left in her poor little body. She's hunched over, head's bowed down, and in the face of the icy wind, she's slowly trying to move forwards. Her feet are bare and probably frostbitten. Behind her hobbles a smaller person, possibly younger, who appears to be crippled or injured and needs 2 crutches to help him. We wonder, what's he doing out on such an awful night? Walking in the snow is precious enough with 2 firm feet on the ground, isn't it? Trying to make any sort of progress with an obvious disability and worn down crutches is definitely not nice. And he's not well enough to be out. But there is a possibility that this person's got no option for him. He might not have anywhere to go. The 2 figures in the Five of Pentacles do look homeless and destitute, and they're wandering the streets in the blizzard at night, lost in their misery and suffering. Surely there's somewhere that they can go, somebody that can help them, someone that can feed them, care for them, or place them where they can find some comfort, at least for the night. They're tired, they're hungry, they're ill, freezing to death. They might not survive the night if they don't find help soon. Obviously, we hope that they know of a place where somebody will take them in, and we hope that they're heading to that place right now. And as they wander down that lonely, cold road, we can't help but notice that stained glass window in the background. This could be that place that is warm. Maybe it's a place of worship. If it is, surely they can seek sanctuary there. They've been made to feel welcome. Yep, as I said, the figures are totally unaware of its presence. The 5 Pentacles depicted in the stained glass look like a strong, healthy tree if you look closely. And that suggests financial stability within, and that the resources are there to feed them and nourish them in plenty of abundance. If you look closely at the top of the window, you'll see 2 towers or castles, left and right at the top. And the castle represents stability, sanctuary, and protection. But they would need to climb up onto the window to even notice it, wouldn't they? But they seem so far away and out of reach. The stained glass window suggests that this is a spiritual aspect, and yet they're not focusing on that. They're too caught up in their suffering and their loss. And so 2 castles isn't relevant to them. But in the past, they may have owned the 2 castles and lived in them. But now they're gone, and probably a lot more besides too. They're left with nothing but the shirt, or the cloak, or the tunic on their backs, and they're probably feeling ashamed and shocked. This was not what they had planned. This was not what was supposed to happen. So now they believe they've lost everything, and they have little left to live for. For as they're trudging through the deep drifts, they've forgotten that they've been providing for everything, but they've not been looking at their spiritual duty. Now, they can't ignore this aspect, and yet they cannot understand its relevance to their situation or plight. Over the course of time, they've become so disconnected from their spiritual side, which would have sustained them through this hardship if they had paid attention to it, that they can only think of their material needs, which might easily be sorted out if they stop letting their personal pride get in the way of asking help. Now, the two figures look very lonely, and it's no wonder that they walk by the church instead of into it, because they're just not focused. So financial and material loss is always suggested in the Five of Pentacles. It represents our physical self, and the figure that's on the crutches can symbolize just not being well. It also suggests that he is no longer able to stand on his own 2 feet because he's needing the support of the crutches. So this could be that he feels financially ruined and money has been revolving around them, and now this is a shocking blow. Now the snow is falling from the sky and covering the ground, just adding to that misery. If they look up, they'll notice the church, their spirituality, and the comfort that it can offer. Instead, they ignore it and they choose to remain in the cold, only thinking of their own piteous circumstances. They even seem to be unaware of each other, because this is a very lonely road that they're travelling on. And if they reached out to each other, they might realise that they're not the only one in such dire circumstances, and that there may be others that's even worse off. They'll be stronger together. They could even come up with a plan. Unfortunately, everything's become very personal, and they're keeping their troubles to themselves, as if they're not really interested in how others can help or how others are managing or even coping. So there may be a lot of organisations behind the stained glass windows, like friends, families, still living in those 2 castles. And they might be willing to help, but pride may have prevented them from disclosing the full extent of their plight. They may feel too ashamed to ask for help. They may find their circumstances humiliating or even degrading, to prefer to go without rather than to be seen to claim welfare, benefit, or assistance. So again, this is a card sometimes comes up where it's about benefits, social security, benevolence, seeking charities, seeking help. And as a result, the natural health and wellness feels as if they have neglected it, that they've done that to themselves. And so they're now vulnerable to all sorts of viruses, diseases, because they've run down and, of course, malnourished. So they've forgotten their way, they've forgotten who they are, but they let their possessions and wealth define them. So the misery outside is a reflection of the misery that's going on inside. And the universe will supply us, but they've lost faith and believe that they're doomed. Because they are dealing with the pentacles, we've got to consider that these figures are not as badly off as they think. Why? Because pentacles is something that's material and manifested. So the scene in this card is more in their mind more than a reality. It will have a background of some deprivation and difficulties, but maybe not so bad as the mindset that they've created. They've become a victim, and they may are living in pride and fear, and they're worrying so much about money that they're really not focused, and they've got a tendency to go without rather than to look at how things could work out. So the Five of Pentacles is a card that speaks to us on all levels. We've talked about claiming for help. This is also finding out who true friends really are. But it's also sometimes about how we choose to see things and how we can't always see everything. whether it's because we're blinkered by the blizzard, or whether it's because we are neglecting ourselves, or whether it's because we simply need to be reminded that the answer will come in front of us. Like I told you my story, it wasn't so much quite like this, but I understood the meaning. There's something I am missing. I am not seeing it. So the Five of Pentacles can bring all of us down to earth with a very big bang, leaving us feeling humbled. And the implications of this card can make us put our whole life under a microscope. So the two figures in this card may have to face up to some very painful facts. They are probably so embarrassed because they have no material gain or wealth, and they feel like down and outs, and they feel that they've been dropped from their circle of friends. But as they're standing in the cold, hungry and homeless, ill, penniless, they realise that they forsook the real friends that they had and instead favoured those people that were material and who they were rubbing shoulders with and sailing on the crest of a wave with. So really, not true friends. So sometimes we can get caught up in what we think is important, material benefits of it all, the haves, wanting to be around them, keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with whatever. So now they're in a place where their status and their money and their power feel as if they've been downgraded to loser or blacklisted. And we must also look at the two figures in another light, but they may be feeling ostracized, alienated, for very valid reasons. But that spiritual building or castles that we see in that stained glass are welcoming them, but they're just not seeing it. And they may have done something which resulted in them being turned out into the street. And the young man on crutches in this figure could simply symbolize broken dreams and not having the ambitions that he once had. So he's hobbling, and that could be that he's carrying his baggage because his plans have failed and everything's collapsed. And yeah, progress and recovery will probably take time. So when the Five of Pentacles comes up in a reading, yeah, we can be feeling insecure. We are feeling as if it's loss, loneliness, and that we've got difficulties. And we do feel that we've been forgotten or that our circumstances have taken a turn for the worse. We may be hit very hard by this, but loss is not always indicating financial, it can be loss of focus. The deterioration can be slow, or it can come in suddenly. And we can blame it on bad luck or this or that or the other. Really, it's about taking accountability. And it's about not worrying that somebody's going to slam the door in your face, and that we all make mistakes, and that you're prepared to work hard to resolve that, and that you can make a change. Okay, so I'm going to say that that's going to be it for our card tonight. Let's just remind you, if you miss any of the tutorials on Thursday, it's this one. That's the Learn Tarot podcast, where you can find the library of all the 78 cards. We've not done all 78 yet. We are getting there. We are finishing the Pentacles, then we'll be on to the Court cards. 20 more to go, I guess. And so that's what it looks like. We began with the Major Arcana, the Fool, the Magician, and so on. Where you'll find it is in my YouTube channel. Oh, you are looking forward to it. So am I. So much fun. Okay, you're very welcome, Passionate Sachi. Thank you so much for all your feedback and help, everybody. Thank you for the lovely question that came up earlier on. Bring a question up on Tuesday because that's what it's all about. Five of Pentacles. Sometimes when cards appear negative, there's so much to them. You do yourself the greatest service of all of being able to know as much as you can about your cards, and then for your intuition to just take on its own unique self. But knowing the meanings will just give you the best possible readings for yourself, sense reading for yourself, for your family, or for your clients. And of course, if you do want to have a career, you've got to be really serious about what you're prepared to give somebody. It's not like the internet of a 30-second short. Yeah? People ask them serious questions. Once you're able to give them that, they'll adore you because they'll keep coming back and asking you different things because you've helped them. It's your ability to be able to interpret the cards. And that is, you're part of that, and that's where tarot is just wonderful. I'll see you on Tuesday, my lovelies. Until then, I'll play you out with our usual. Here is the courses and then the outro. Bye for now.